I know I said I'd probably blend winter and spring together for my next Little Things video. Then I had almost 10 topics by the end of December. So here we are, once again, to appreciate the little things. I'm continuing to follow and thoroughly enjoy My Hero Academia, and I know some of you will leap to the comments to tell me what a basic and derivative shonen adaptation Hero Aca is, but I just think it's neat. The addition of Overhaul into the cocktail of superpowered deviants has given some much needed development and screen time to the League of Evil we've come to know, and the Yakuza hideout causes some of the most intense and interesting fights the show's ever had. Sir Night-Eye is one of my new favorite characters, and it's beyond a pleasure to be catching up with anime's best boy Deku. After the show's monumental climaxes last year, I'm glad Hero Aca is still never pulling its punches and putting a heroic smile on my face, including its most terrifying antagonist ever, children. Because of the bad press surrounding the original Ukulele, it isn't shocking to me that many turned their nose up at the follow-up, Ukulele and Be Impossible Lair, but I would say that those ignoring this game are missing out on one of the freshest and most innovative platformers I've ever played. I've never seen a game with a hub overworld that not only serves as a playstyle in of itself, but has your actions within affect the levels before you enter them, and the concept of collecting resources to slowly but surely prepare yourself for the always open Impossible Lair is brilliant. The creative DNA of Rareware can be felt with every leap and bound you take with this duo, a perfect blend of Banjo-Kazooie, Donkey Kong Country, and Yoshi's Island that I find shame in the fact that more people aren't talking about. Speaking of really fun installments that went terribly ignored due to lackluster predecessors, Terminator Dark Fate is actually a really great action blockbuster. People seem peeved by the fact that the lead with the most action to deal with was an aging Linda Hamilton carrying a myriad of explosives while the iconic Terminator took a step back as a drapery salesman, but honestly, those are big pluses if you ask me. I'd also argue that this movie had some of the best fight scenes of last year. The choreography and environments take full advantage of the robotic anatomy and nature of the Terminators, and feels like a really brutal slugfest despite the need for CGI. This is how James Cameron intended the trilogy to end, and it's all well worth your while and a rental if you're a fan of the original two Terminator films. I'd call the rapid-fire reviews and sardonic writing of YouTuber Jellopocalypse some of the biggest reasons I ever bothered to make YouTube videos myself, which is why I was super interested to check out his arguable biggest artistic endeavor ever, Epithet Erased, where with the help of a whole amazing slew of talent he's created one of the most distinct and fun independent series I've had the pleasure of observing, with a style I can only describe as tabletop RPG meets a visual novel. Blend all of that with a slapdash sense of humor and some of the most appealing character designs coupled with creative abilities that lend themselves super well to chaotic and unpredictable team brawls. This amazing collab of inventive storytelling easily played its way into my heart with a sweet jazz flair. The best praise I can give Craig of the Creek is that it absolutely is serving We Bare Bears a run for its money as to my favorite show on Cartoon Network at the moment. I think it's easy to say that the show really captures the feeling of being a kid, but I sincerely mean that about Craig of the Creek, which captures the bizarre social cliques and phenomenon of playful youth the most genuinely I've seen a show do since the days of Disney's Recess. There's expanded drama over a facsimile of Yu-Gi-Oh! There's a group of horse girls who run around with their hands balled up like hooves. There's the crushing reality that aging separated from a relative for too long can turn them into a total stranger. The list goes on. And with talents like Phil Lamar and Terry Crews at the heart of the cast, coupled with a stylish ska soundtrack, the show is an audio delight as well. Craig of the Creek is exceptional, and stands tall among Cartoon Network's repertoire even while they're putting out excellent programming. I'd like to honorably mention in way of Steven Universe Future and brand new darling Victor and Valentino. I did not walk into Birds of Prey thinking I would walk out with a new favorite superhero movie of all time, but here I am adoring the masterful character work and world building the movie provided. I've seen this film compared a lot to Deadpool, but the way we see this incredibly characteristic version of Gotham City reminds me a lot more of Scott Pilgrim in a way I really love. This film's version of Harley really embraces the character's warts and flaws, and plays up the consequences of her actions in a way I haven't seen an adaptation play up in a while. And the violent encounters she gets caught up in are beautifully choreographed, by the same talents that gave John Wick his aggressive edge. Ewan McGregor's Black Mask is my favorite comic book movie villain since Killmonger, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead will be who I always think of as the Huntress from now on. Despite a questionable pedigree of the film's past, this is not one to sleep on. I have a new best friend in the superhero genre. For that matter, even Harley's animated series, Against All Odds, is pretty solid and funny. It's been a good few months for the clown princess of crime. I'd be lying if I said I was never caught up in the controversy surrounding Pokemon Sword and Shield, or if I said I felt the game didn't have any room for improvement, but it didn't take long into my college try with the game to remember why I find Pokemon so consistently difficult to put down the second I pick it up. Game Freak's penchant for character design still shines through, and even ignoring characters I was inspired to give whole videos to, there's still much to be said about the fabulous but feral Ryan and the modest but memorable Pierce. More than anything, this is the Pokemon game I felt most encouraged to explore and take in the world in by ages, as well as the first one to actually be challenging enough to make me black out a couple times in years. It isn't exactly the high I've been chasing of Black and White, but it's a solid step in the right direction if you ask me. Sometimes I feel compelled to point out to millennial culture that there are indeed funny comedians other than John Mulaney, and sometimes the landscape of stand-up proves me wrong. Equally capable of doing so is John Mulaney's new special, The Sack Lunch Bunch, which plays as a parody of children's variety shows in way of Sesame Street and Zoom. What makes this special so much fun is how it functions as something families can enjoy together and take something from at the same time. It never leans toward being mean-spirited or joking at the expense of kids, always laughing with them in a way everyone can have fun with. Anything that can create a jazz number about a young man's passion for buttered noodles that sticks in my head for a solid week after watching deserves my utmost praise. I've been following Ross O'Donovan since his days under the Game Grumps umbrella, and a huge smile stretched across my face at the news that he was starting an all-new animation project in Social Monsters, answering the burning questions of what a she-devil would do on an Instagram account, or how a slime monster would network on YouTube. Ross's characteristic art and passion shines through every adorable character he's created, and he's already sprung up sort of a mini-empire of cute merch and portraits, feeling like an endearing line of marketable characters in the vein of 80s toy lines with a slight edge and esoteric humor. Especially seeing some of the struggles in real life Ross has been very open about discussing, it warms my heart to see his project come to life. Also, I will not argue with anyone who wants to send me Slime Anthem merch. I can never have enough Best Girl. Vinland Saga is precisely what I think will itch the scratch of people missing the glory days of the likes of Game of Thrones and Berserk, but with the distinct lore, atmosphere, and flavor of Vikings. Vikings being the name of the voyages traveled, actually, not the warriors participating themselves. Equally misconceived about Vikings are the common aesthetic of horned helmets, a choice that would just beg to have protective headgear pulled off during battle. It's not as if savage battle was the only endeavor tackled by Vikings anyway, as most Vikings were to establish trade routes, as opposed to outright conquest or pillaging, even if those proclivities were certainly not unheard of. Fitting to such a mundane lifestyle, a Viking funeral as we know it was also usually a fabrication of fiction. Vinland Saga crafts a dog-eat-dog world with a compelling protagonist who learns from those he hates and aims to reap vengeance against, which is a super interesting complex, coupled with some of the most intense action scenes of the past season. This is a seinen must-watch. I feel the success of Ari Aster and similar works of horror and suspense have almost given shape to a new sort of subgenre of film exploring simulated anxiety of a sort, an art that in my eyes is perfected by Uncut Gems. There's always been a small contrarian part of me rooting for Adam Sandler to really knock one out of the park, and this long-awaited victory comes in the package of an engaging character piece with the distinct energy of a vague, shaking nightmare, covered up by a flippant and confident facade. You get this insane scumbag of a lead character, and yet it's so hard not to care about him as you experience his worst day ever. And despite the fact that I'm a geek who plays video games for children, I have a real eye for the aesthetic flair given off by the extravagant culture of New York's Diamond District, played so accurately. If you're looking for something to keep you on the edge of your seat, seek this one out ASAP. Transitioning to adulthood and a more consistent commute to and from a daily professional commitment, a podcast to enjoy to and from my vocation has become invaluable to my sanity. And while I have a wide collection of go-tos I intend to discuss sooner or later, one of my oldest favorites that has made my weeks better to this day is the Doughboys Chain Restaurant podcast, which almost at times feels like a malicious case study seeking how years and years of weekly fast food can strain a friendship. The rapport of the duo is genuine, sometimes cynical, but always hilarious, and it's almost weird to think of the sheer numbers of hours I've devoted to listening to Nick Weiger and Mike Mitchell talk about fast food. But hey, anyone who gives my Midwest favorite the perfect score it deserves has earned this level of devotion. Go Culvers! On another note, one half of Doughboys, Nick Weiger, has started a second podcast, How Did This Get Played?, with the talented and funny Heather Ann Campbell, which started as a riff on bad video games anyone could kind of manage, but it's aged like a fine wine into a celebration of strange video games, with their spotlights on Seaman, Katamari Damacy, and Catherine being some of my favorites. It's conversational content like this that keeps my brain primed for what's coming at me later in the day. Over the years, following the tragic saga of BoJack Horseman has been the highlight of my winter-spring transitions. It was always a show I could count on for super sharp satirical wit, with a sizable side order of existential dread and emotional gut punches. The final season didn't end on a note that answered every question I had, but in a show about gradual personal improvement, I think it'd be a disservice to wrap it all up in a neat little package. We got a brief revisit to just about every character we've met along the way. No matter how grim the subject matter got, the show's writing was lightning fast and hilarious as ever. As sad as it makes me that this old horse of a series has finally been put out to pasture, I'll always cherish my memories with it as quite possibly Netflix's best show ever. There's a scene in the new Sonic movie you've all probably caught wind of, where Sonic plays baseball all by himself, imitating people he's observed using his speed, and realizing just how lonely he is in a world he's alien to. And as ridiculous as that sounds, it's the most connected I've felt to Sonic as a character. The Sonic movie creates a surprisingly vulnerable version of a character who needed a warmer side exposed, which is just one element of a movie I found overall delightful. It manages to lean into everything inherently awkward about what's going on, but just to the right amount to produce something really charming. Jim Carrey is serving more ham than a Christmas dinner as Robotnik, and Ben Schwartz lands quips not many actors could as the titular Needle Mouse. This movie's loving craft awakened a long-dormant Sonic fan within me, which can only mean it's time to get cracking on some OCs. Supergirl has cemented its place as my favorite show in the Arrowverse, feeling corny if not downright preachy at places, but acting as an adaptation of Metropolis and Superman lore, I don't think it'd be faithful any other way. It serves up fun fan service for those of us who love these Superman and Metropolis-related characters, and has some of the Arrowverse's biggest heart, as well as one of the best versions of my favorite villain ever, Lex Luthor, that I've observed in a long while. Plus, with the Crisis on Infinite Earths special bringing Supergirl to the Arrowverse full-time, there's only more to look forward to as she interacts with the likes of the Flash and Black Lightning, which has me really excited. With all that said, I wanted to use this as a springboard to discuss something a little more serious. As in November, Supergirl's lead actress, Melissa Benoist, stepped forward with her story as a survivor of domestic abuse. I'm aware Melissa isn't the only person in the industry, let alone the topics I discuss in these videos, with a story like this, and it's a little weird to narrow hers down, but knowing that one of my favorite heroes needed one of her own for so long really impacted me, and left no doubt in my heart that the courage and inspiration Melissa radiates as Supergirl expands to her in real life. In addition to sharing my love of Supergirl, I wanted to use this as a chance to commend Melissa for her bravery, and hope that sharing her story will inspire others to do the same, and help survivors everywhere feel less alone. Supergirl has my entire heart, as does Melissa, and anyone who shares her strife. Hope you all enjoyed this little look back. These are always some of my favorite videos to put together and just reflect on the things that brought me joy through the last few months, here and there. I hope you found things that brought you as much happiness as the things I talked about here brought me, and I hope that you find more things in the coming months, and have a lovely day.